Welcome to Sketchy Ideas, the point counterpoint video podcast where we illustrate, debate, and discuss ideas about leadership and a bunch of other stuff that I'm blanking on as soon as I can. Ideas about leadership, business, growth, strategy, the occasional movie and or musical reference, and technology and all of its many joys. And probably this week, the weather while we're at it. I'm one of your co-hosts, Michael Rampola.
I am Brad James.
And on this week's episode, we're going to do our best to define leadership and remember our lines. And as we're trying to define leadership, it's important that we think about all the different things that go into that. And that's what we're going to get into today. But before we do that, we need to give a shout out to Sketchy Ideas being powered by Cream City Marketing and Spirity. And for a message from Cream City Marketing, here's Brad.
Cream City Marketing, if you've got strategies that you're trying to implement this year in your small or medium-sized business and having troubles, hit us up at creamcitymarketing.com and we can probably make those things happen for you. And they will look really nice.
Accurate. That's a very accurate. Sketchy Ideas is also powered by Spirity. Spirity, we help you overcome the obstacles to achieve a greater success. Strategic planning it's never too late for a great strategic plan. Now is a great time to put that together. If you're still trying to figure out what the rest of the year is going to look like, we would love to support you in that effort. Reach out to us at spirity.com. So for this week's episode, we're going to do our best to define leadership, which is one of those things that it's like, I know it when I see it, but if I had to come up with put it down on paper, it gets a little bit more elusive. Brad, have you agree with that experience?
Yeah, I think it's definitely something that has a whole bunch of gray area and is not black or white. And, prior to this, we talked about it being on a spectrum and having layers. And it's one of the biggest reasons why it's important to understand how to define it for yourself. I mean, I shared with you the story of when I was at high school, I was challenged with I had troubles communicating on a level with certain groups of peers versus other groups of peers. And that's kind of what led me down this journey. And I was handed this book, which is a great book, and I still have it, right? Things are all still noted in there. The Leadership Challenge by Kouzes and Posner. And I was recognized as a leader growing up, but I didn't understand what that meant. And I think the biggest challenge is once I started studying it, I began to become self-aware when I was enacting and being a powerful or quality leader versus not such a good leader, or trying to understand areas I could grow in leadership versus areas that I didn't at that time need to grow in based on the situations I was in. So I think for me, at least, defining leadership became this nebulous spectrum, the drawing that you've got, but at the same point in time, without having that understanding of defining it, I wasn't able to apply the correct styles of leadership at the right time or understand how to grow in leadership. And I know you talked about a situation when you were thrust into leadership at one of your positions via title, right?
Yeah, no, that's a great, the thrust is definitely what it was. I took on a role and said, okay, you're supervisor now. I said, great. So I started supervising like everything. And I definitely leaned in our spectrum more towards the management supervision version of leadership than the leading by example, coaching, inspiring
mentoring
version.
Yep. Yeah.
Right. Speaking of I think I know what this is supposed to be, but I definitely, knowing now what I know from a theory perspective, I was doing theory X of management leadership, versus theory Y. Theory X is the idea of the worker is, the worker is lazy. They won't do it unless you force them to do it. Everybody's, basically lying, cheating, and stealing and trying to get by. I'm paraphrasing. Theory Y is people are internally motivated. This is externally motivated. people are internally motivated. As a leader, your opportunity is to tap into that internal motivation, align it to the mission of the organization, and get great outcomes. And I didn't get that. I probably experienced it, but I didn't. Now I somehow mentally separated like how I like to be led from how I'm leading others, which
Yeah.
I think is
We've
a
all
challenge
been
that a
there.
lot of first-time leaders run into. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. I really think that, especially if you are you have high aspirations for yourself.
Right.
I think leadership is something that you make an effort to begin studying at some point in time. But if you are not somebody who maybe you don't have those high aspirations right away, and you're put into a position because you're a quality team member or employee, or you're a high performer,
Yep.
because you're gifted, talented, skilled, whatever, that you don't necessarily understand what it is you need to be doing. It's why great salespeople tend to make bad sales managers.
Mm-hmm.
Is because they're really good at sales, and in sales they're leading customers.
Right. So
they should be good at leading a team of people leading customers. But
absolutely.
that's where I'm saying that it's a spectrum, but also that spectrum has layers and levels to it.
Yeah.
And I didn't begin to understand it until I put definitions around leadership. And this was book number 1, way back
There you
when.
go.
And I would imagine that if people were to reflect on what leadership meant for them growing up, they'd probably be in the same place.
I think that's a great way to look at it, because oftentimes our first example of being led, seeing and experiencing a leader, definitely comes at a young age. And if we're getting some engagement on the live feed, or hey, if you're watching this on a rerun right now, do me a favor, think about somebody who was a great leader for you. If you want to share their name, you can. But more importantly, what was it that made that? Why are they coming to mind right now? Think about your first great leader, coach, mentor, etc. Whoever it was, why are they the person that's top of mind for you right now? If you can jump in on a comment, would love to see it, because this is often a place that we start to realize what great leaders are, because we've experienced being led by a great leader. So we can define leadership in reflection often much more easily than we can define leadership from this theoretical place. And I know that for your researchers there, K&P, they did exactly that, right? A lot of the research was going into successful organizations, successful teams, and figuring out why this team is successful. And then here we can come up with our theories and our practices and our guidelines, right?
Yeah, and I mean, it's again, that's just defining it, right? But it's so critical to being able to grow, and I know this is really something important for what you do with all the organizations and clients you work with, is that in those HR organizations, HR leaders have a tough and difficult job, because they have to often define and build programming around nurturing and creating leaders inside of those organizations. And more often than not, it's why like when you do a study of CEOs, there's various types of CEOs, and each of the different CEOs rose to that level either through entrepreneurship, skill set and drive and management of other people,
Sure.
or inspiration, leadership, drive. Yeah, I mean, and there's other ways too, but without having an understanding of leadership at that HR management level, you're really going to struggle trying to ensure that the people you're constantly bringing in are going to stick and they're going to be able to grow. Because if they don't grow, the company doesn't grow.
Right.
Right.
Right. So I like that. So there's different ways to define leadership. We've got by experience. I'm getting your point, which is I'm going to say by outcomes.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Right. If I am a great leader, how will you know? You're going to experience that leadership, and I'm going to say it should be both. And that leadership is going to result in great outcomes. That's your point for the organization.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, isn't that what, like, if I'm running a business, I want great leaders, because great leaders will create better outcomes for the business.
Absolutely.
Am I
sounds right to me.
I mean, I don't know.
Yeah.
maybe
Probably
I
the way to
don't
do
want
it.
great leaders. I mean, because there are counterpoints to it, right? Like
So what?
Ford Motor Company became a great company,
Okay.
irregardless of leadership, because the way they were built is if somebody became a great leader, they boot them and get rid of them right away. I mean, you've read the stories, right?
Oh yeah, yeah, I get it.
Without taking a tangent, I just think it's important to understand that we're not looking at it from the standpoint of leadership is the only way to grow business, but it is definitely not the easiest way, but it's also not the hardest way, right? That's why we brought up this conversation, because leadership styles and defining it for yourself are so important, because it builds into the ethos and the culture of the company.
Right. Yeah, I think that's key. And you know what? Somewhere between the theory and the practice, if I'm going to pull that out here, and I'm going to call back in a second to one of my favorite, books on the topic. I'm going to say is self-awareness. And actually, it's two things.
Yeah.
So it's self-awareness in context, because that's your point about self-awareness X context. So in the Ford example, right? What makes a great leader in that context might be different than what makes a great leader in a different context.
Yeah. Yep.
Right. And for the self-awareness piece, one of my favorites on this topic is True North. And one of the reasons I really like True North is because, again, study of a lot of great successful leaders and kind of the looking for the what makes a great leader always. And what the authors and the researchers found is it's all different. So therefore, what's the same? And what was the same was each of those leaders had great self-awareness and understood that they needed to know themselves and understand the situation and apply and adapt the two together. So there was no all leaders look like this. It was all leaders are aware of who they are as a leader and apply themselves to the situation accordingly in order for them to rise and lead an organization. So I just thought that was great. I think there was only a few universals. Some general styles was the other thing that came out. And the third thing I remember was, you have a preferred style and a default style. And under stress and pressure, you go to your default or your backup style, which is typically the way that you don't like to lead, and it's the less effective version. So it's the self-awareness of this is me at my best, what triggers me to be not at my best, and trying to put yourself in positions to do A more than B. All of those were some of the interesting things I remember coming out of that. All right, we got some audience engagement, which we're always thrilled for. So seeing Heidi say, thanks, team. I find that good leaders are usually humble about it. I like that. It's the poor leaders who actually think they're great leaders. Oh, high five. Right. If you call, I learned it this way. You can put leader on your business card, but if you have to put leader on your business card, that means that it's like you have to tell everybody else that you're a leader. You shouldn't have to say it. A great leader shouldn't have to say, I'm a great leader. You should just know it. It comes from experience. Heidi, great comment. And then Aaron is dropping in some specifics: authenticity, which I think goes back to that self-awareness, listening skills, and a passion for their work and their people. Separate the leaders from the managers. Oh, there we go. There's some more buzzwords for today. So Brad and I were talking about not leading might also be called managing, which is my example of I thought I was leading. I don't think I really was.
Yeah, I mean, when I talk about it, you have management skills and you have leadership is like qualities and mindset is what you said. So if you are put into a position of supervision or leadership, you still have to have management skills in order to be an effective leader that's going to generate the results you're looking for. Which goes back to then when you apply those skills, those management skills, your style of leadership may shift from different levels of what you're trying to do. And it goes back again to that self-awareness, right? Yes. So we're actually doing a pretty good job at defining this. I think through our conversation, this is like better than the first two conversations we had about this topic.
Fantastic. every time it's a little bit better. We are a continuous improvement machine. Look at us. So I like that. Management, leadership, self-awareness, context, I think absolutely application comes from that. Now, what do I do with that? If I can have great management theory, I can even have great leadership theory, but
Mm-hmm.
I, as a person, still need to bring that to bear, right, in my situation. And my situational awareness, i.e., listening to others, as Aaron dropped in here, listening to others and understanding the situation I'm working in is definitely a key skill of leadership, and therefore is going to get me back to results. If I don't,
Yeah.
if I misapply, misunderstand, or miss something, I'm not going to get to that things are better. So let's do that. Let's do outcomes for a second here. I want to do a little bit. So by experience, we got that. By
I,
outcomes,
I think
mm,
I think
go
I
ahead.
think we've hit the outcomes thing because we're still missing the one thing you've hammered home in every conversation we've had about this. Your
Right.
basics for defining leadership are what?
All right. So I put it this way. We've talked about business before. If you remember our great session on the four, navigating the four C's, right? If you're not making money, you don't have a business. That was one of our core principles. Here's the definition of leaders. If you don't have any followers, you're not a leader. Number one, people say I'm a great leader. Okay, I don't see anybody back there, right? A great leader has followers who are choosing to be there, right?
I'm not
Managers have
talking
people.
social media followers.
No, that's a different. They chose to be there too, but that's a different conversation. If you're a manager, people are below you, behind you, beneath you, whatever you want to say, but they didn't choose to be there necessarily. If you are leading, they are choosing to follow, right? Might look the same day to day, but you'll know the difference when the chips are down, when the pressure is on, when the heat is rising, when push comes to shove. Insert three other metaphors here. That's when you'll know whether or not you have somebody's loyalty as a leader. You'll know when you are running into the fire, if people are trying to get ahead of you and say, no, I got this one, boss. Like, okay, that's when you know that you are leading others, when they are actually trying to follow you and even get ahead of you to help take care of you because you have taken care of them. So number one
Mm-hmm.
thing, if you're a leader, you have followers who chose to be there. And number two, they're getting better outcomes. They're getting more success as a result of following you. They chose to be
Based on
there.
the principles that you've set.
Exactly. Exactly. And it's got to be their own benefit, right? If they're following me and my life is better, or if they're following me and the organization is better, but they're not getting more success for themselves, that's not going to stick, right? They're not going to stick around. They're not going to stay engaged, give discretionary effort, put in that extra time, stay loyal and trusting and all those other good things if they're not getting some direct benefit, not because they're selfish, but because they're human. And humans need to self-preserve by definition. So more success and choosing to be there. Those are choosing to follow. Those are two keys.
Brian brought up an interesting point in challenging the thought about the social media thing, which I think is very valid. I'm going to read this, Brian, unless you want to chime in. I think it would be worth you chiming in, but I understand. Don't fans choose to follow influencers, though? They are able to push the leader to better successes. That's interesting. I actually would like to table that one for another time because I feel like that's actually a really good topic, Brian. That's awesome. Yeah, because I think at the root of it, yes, I think you are correct. I think the challenge is, though, now we're getting into qualifying, is that follower there for the leader, or is that follower there for themselves? And is that marketing or is that leadership, right? Like there's some interesting pieces there that I definitely want to talk through. And I think we should talk through it in one of the next few episodes. And it might be nice to have some more information on it. So I'm all for it. I think that's an interesting take that I've never actually thought of.
I like it. And I think
Yeah.
I'm gonna pull out one. I'm gonna put a pin in this. I'm gonna do a tease on the terminology, right? I'm following you and you're an influencer. And there are some classic definitions of leadership. Brad will be able to cite the source on this one, right?
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
that's leadership. Leadership at the end of the day.
Yeah. You're influencing. That's why I thought it was an interesting way to frame it.
Great. Voice of God coming through, even when we don't hear it. Voice of God is setting us up today. Appreciate you, Brian. All right. So I've got a couple of things I'm calling here. So I'm going to say, so leadership by experience. So people who are choosing to follow you. Number 2, they're achieving more success as a result of following you. Now, there's a third part that I want you to think about.
Mm-hmm.
So if you look behind you, people are there. They chose to be there, and they're getting better outcomes as a result. How do you keep them there? How do you keep them there? The best way to keep them there is the third part here, which is give them what they need to be successful. Give them what they need. And the number one thing that people need to be successful is clear expectations.
Yes. Back to the vista.
So you can say tools, resources, materials, all of that is great, but if I don't have a clear understanding of what good looks like, all that other stuff kind of falls apart. I don't know what to do with it. So to give them what they need, and the number one thing that they need is clear expectations. And that is how you create the alignment between what they want and what you need.
Yeah. I think that boils down a lot of now again, all right. So what Michael's saying there is that you're really looking at 3 different areas, okay? We're looking at 1, you need to drive results for that individual, yes, right? Not just for yourself if you are leading. 2, they're choosing to be there, okay? So they're not forced, right? So if you're in a corporation or a business or some organization and you are put in a place of positional authority, remember, just because you have a title does not make you a leader. It just gives you a title. Because I've seen plenty of managers not have anybody do anything and it all falls on them. And they tend to be the people who are extremely gifted and talented who pull through, or they don't. And the third thing is that it's a two-way street, right? This goes into one of the definitions that I think is so critical for people to understand and embody in terms of quality human life, which is service leadership or servant leadership. Mm-hmm. And I think it's in business that is often forgotten about, but often servant leadership can be as simple as when somebody is having car troubles and they let you know, you could literally just offer, hey, do you need me to come pick you up? Like, it can be as simple as that, right? You're just being a servant, and by you giving of your time, or you don't even have to. Often they're going to say no, but the appreciation level of asking, and as long as the intent is clear and there, people begin to look at it. So again, we're defining, now we're getting into some dotted I's, crossing T's of definitions of leadership. But at the same point in time, the reason Michael and I wanted to do this is because if you're in an organization, whether it's an early stage organization, maybe you are the organization, or it's an organization where you have different layers, you have to be able to be self-reflective enough to define what leadership means in your organization in order to get the positivity that comes from understanding what leadership means. Because if you have different styles of leadership firing off, now guess what? It can be a very bad thing. I've seen it. I've lived it sometimes. Mm-hmm. And it's not because people are bad. It's just there are different styles and different definitions of leadership for everybody. And if you don't understand what those are, and you don't get clarity on what those are, especially when working in a business, you end up having chaos or at least confusion when it comes to communication or what is important in terms of activity, right? Responsibility versus accountability, which I know is a topic that Michael and I are going to talk about, as well as getting the results that you're trying to get by implementing leadership or choosing to live the mindset of leadership rather than just management. If everybody were just computers and robots, management would be fantastic.
Oh, absolutely. Because this
But
input gives me that
unfortunately-
output consistently. I don't have to worry about how they feel today. Here's the thing about robots, people. They don't feel. You don't have to deal with feelings. You don't have to deal with emotions. They don't have a home life. They are robots. So if you want to lead robot, you can't really, but the thing is you can't influence a robot. You can only manage it. You could never lead
Correct.
a robot because that would involve you influencing its behaviors and its outcomes, which you cannot control. But that's humans. Humans you can only influence because you cannot control. Robots you can only control because you cannot influence. So depending on your skill set, you might make a better manager of robots than you are a leader of people. Nothing wrong with that, because the robots need managers too.
Here's the thing. This is not for all of you lovers of the Super Bowl commercial by Alexa that had Michael B. Jordan, okay? I want to make this very clear. Throw that one away. That's called marketing.
Get that out of here. But here's the thing, and I'm being cute, but it's true. In order for any organization to be successful, you need different skill sets. Brad made the point, and it happens all the time. How often have you seen a great practitioner promoted to leader, but they don't have leadership skills? And yet it happens all the time. I would love to see more organizations finding people with leadership skills, whether or not they have the practical skills of the people they're going to be leading, and putting them in the position of leader. Because a truly great leader does not, and I'm going to really go past convention here and say, a great leader of others does not need to be able to do the things that they are leading. A great leader of others does not need to be good at the job, the work that they are leading, because what they're really doing is all this other stuff. They're not doing the job. They're leading and inspiring and encouraging and influencing the others to do the job by figuring out what they need and making sure that they get it. And that doesn't require you to be able to do what you do.
But that goes back to the point, Michael, of making sure that you have definitions around what leadership means in your organization, okay? So Michael's not saying if they're doing a great job and they're really good at what they do, doesn't mean they shouldn't be promoted to leader. It just means you need to define what leadership means in your organization so that you can pick out who fits the mold of the culture of how you're developing leaders in your organization, right? Cousins and Posner has a very different way of developing leaders than does, I'm drawing a blank. Why was it? Than some of the books that Michael Hyatt writes, right?
Sure.
It's very different, okay? And so you have to look at it from the standpoint and define it for what goes on in your organization. Because if you don't, you will end up with an array of leaders, and then you end up with the 5 dysfunctions of a team, which is what Lencioni talks about, right?
Thank you. Yep.
So all of these things, when you're building an organization, whether it's you and a small team, you're still going to have it in some way, shape, or form, because you're leading vendors and you're leading customers. If you're running an HR department and you're trying to figure this out, I fully get your struggle. That's why Michael has a job and runs a fantastic business, okay? Because this is what he does all day, every day. Wow. And then you got to look at it and you got to understand, hey, these are some great nuts and bolts that we laid out for you in terms of helping you begin to define it through self-reflection. But I think you need to dive into it deeper. And that's, I guess, my call to action today is dive into it deeper. And if you need help, ping us, info@sketchyideasshow.com, or email Michael at spirity.com.
Just that easy.
Okay? Because you gotta, it's good to have guidance on how to best create this stuff for your organization, whether you've been doing it forever and you need a refresher, because guess what? Us millennials don't work in the old way of doing things, or not. It's good to have somebody who's coming in from the outside, who's studying this constantly and finding different ways to implement different strategies and different training, different development, different, whatever you want to call it. Am I wrong? Tell me if I'm wrong.
I cannot tell you you're wrong. You're absolutely right. You're absolutely right on that. You nailed it, because the point you're making is basically that every organization is a little bit different. An organization needs to understand, back to self-awareness. An organization needs to be self-aware about its strengths, its weaknesses, its opportunities, and what it needs, and how it's defining success for itself. And therefore, once an organization can do that, it can define and identify what great leadership looks like in its own context. So back to our point about what makes great leaders is what makes great organizations. You'll know a great organization by the experiences it creates, the same way that we know great leaders by people choosing to follow them. You'll know a great organization by its outcomes, the same way you'll know that an individual has found a great leader by them having better outcomes and more success. And to the third point, by method, by approach, by technique. In leadership, we're talking about serving others. Great organizations serve and take care of their customers and their people just as well as their customers. So absolutely, as the individual goes, so goes the org. As the leader goes, so goes the followers. Those two things can come together, and when you see them come together, that's when you see different levels of success. And that's the kind of levels of success you can achieve as well when you get some insight into these things for you and your org. And we want to encourage you to reach out and get some support on that. So we're going to put a wrap on it. I think we did a pretty good job. I think we did a pretty good job defining leadership today. I feel pretty good about it.
I think we did. I think we did.
Thanks. I want to thank again our audience engagement, because that keeps us going, and we really appreciate that. And keep reaching out to us as a follow-up on this to see how we can help and support you. This episode of Sketchy Ideas has been powered by Cream City Marketing and Spirity. We want to encourage you to reach out to us at sketchyideasshow.com. You can like, share, subscribe, and do all the other influencer type follower things that people do on the socials. And
if it was helpful, share it with friends. That's the big thing, right? Take a screen cap,
be nice,
and share it and tag us. Just be nice.
And if it wasn't helpful to you, be kind. That's all I'm saying.
Be kind.
Be kind.
It is. Hey, it is Kindness Day. It's National Kindness Day.
Is that a thing?
So please be kind.
We only get one day of it. Well, let's enjoy it.
Only one day.
All right, I'm going to get us out of here. This has been Michael Rempola, Brad James for Sketchy Ideas. Just remember, if just because you saw it on the internet, no, that's the wrong one. The other one, just because it's a sketchy idea, doesn't mean it's not worth exploring. We'll explore another sketchy idea with you next week. Take care, everybody.
See ya.